Welcome to a quick overview of Cursor. Here's the window you see when you first open Cursor. If you've opened some projects, you'll see them down here. Otherwise, you hit Open Project to open a folder. You hit Clone Repo to pull code from the internet somewhere or from a local server. And Connect via SSH allows you to work on another machine than the one you're coding on. All right, so if you don't already have a project, you can come over to your file browser. You can create a new folder. I'm going to create one called Overview. I'm going to go back to Cursor. I'm going to open that folder. There it is. If I just click into it and hit open, it'll open that folder as a project. Okay, so this is the main view of the IDE. IDE stands for Integrated Development Environment. So Cursor is descended from VS Code or Visual Studio Code, and it looks very similar if you've used it. If you haven't used it, that's okay. We'll go over the important bits here. So on the left, you've got your file browser by default. Your buttons here may look a little bit different. They may be on the left, but that is configurable and you can change it if you don't like the way it is. So we don't have any files in our project. Here's search. This is for searching through the whole project. Again, no files to search through, so not really much to do there. This is your version control system tab, and so this is where you will manage the versions of your code. So you'll always want to use a code repository when you're coding, and this is the place to do it. This is where you manage your AI agents. More on that in the future, but we'll come back to that. In the center here, you've got your code editing window or pane. We don't have anything open, so you don't see anything there. On the right, we've got our agent interface. So this is a chat-based interface. If you've ever used ChatGPT or the like, this is very similar to that. And so what you're chatting with here is not just a plain basic large language model, such as if you're talking to Gemini, this can write code and interact with a project and search through a project and do a lot of really cool stuff. So on the left here, you see switch agent mode. So if you click that, you'll see at least agent background and ask. Agent basically has access to everything. That is the full-on functionality of the IDE. Ask essentially has less access to tools, so it can't screw things up too badly. And then background, we won't go over that here, but essentially if you want to run agents in the background. I have some custom modes here. We'll go over how to activate that a little bit, but I won't go too deeply into those. Here's where you can choose the large language model you want to use. I really like GPT-5 lately, but I've heard good things about Claude 4.5 Sonnet, particularly that it's pretty darn fast. This @ here, so this is to add context to your request to the coding agent. And we haven't done anything in this project, so we don't have anything to add here. But as you add files, as you add past chats, as you add rules, and we'll go over those a little bit, this is where you can add them to your conversation. You can also, this is new as of this week, you can add, or as of a week ago, you can add browsers, and the agent can interact with browsers, which is really cool. Right here, you'll see you can either you can create a new chat, which actually creates a new tab, and there are shortcuts for this. So on Mac, it's Command-T to open up a new tab. If you want to replace this chat with another chat, it's just Control-N, or you hit Option and click on this button. All right, so also middle mouse closes tabs. So good to know. Sometimes I can't find this little X here. So let's get started. So this is an overview project, and we're just talking about Cursor. So let's build a Flask project. Within that project, we'll have a simple calculator. Okay, so I just sent that request to the coding agent, which in this case is Claude 4.5 Sonnet. You can watch it here. This is the thinking stage. So you saw it was kind of grayed out as it was doing stuff here, and so you can follow that. You don't have to. When you're getting started, you really should probably watch this to familiarize yourself with how the agent works, what it is doing. So you'll see here that it's written a new file, and if I click on that, I can look at the file. Within the file, everything that the agent has modified is green, and in this case, the whole file is new, so the whole file is green. You can either hit undo or keep. So undo will at this point basically erase this file, which is kind of pointless, but keep will allow you to accept the agent's changes. And you'll see over here, it is done. It has created a basic Flask application. It's written some files. It's created a nice template. And let's try to run it. Okay, so it says to run your calculator app, run this and then run that. Then open your browser to this. So one thing about this coding agent is it can actually run these commands for us. And so if I just ask it to run the commands for us, it should at this point ask me for permission to run those commands. Yep, so I'm gonna hit add CD +1 to allow list. We'll see what it says. Okay, so it ran into a little issue there. Pip not found. So it's gonna try something else. Again, I'm just gonna add this to the allow list because I want to be able to do these things all the time. Okay, so it found the right command to run. And that's one really important thing. So back in the day when we used to do these things manually, you would have to potentially go look up, okay, why is pip not working? Because a lot of documentation will just tell you to run pip. And so it just knew, hey, I'm gonna try to run pip3 instead, which is a more specific version of pip. All right, while I've been blabbing, it's been asking me for this, so it's going to start the Flask server. Okay, now let's see if we can go to localhost 5000. It says it's running in the background there. So we'll go back over to our browser, open a new tab. And okay, I don't see anything there. So one thing to know is in your browser, you can hit the web inspector. This may be called DevTools or something else in your browser. Okay, so we got, what is this? So if I click on this, I got a 403 forbidden. Okay, so let's go back here. Tell it. So tell it about the 403 forbidden. All right, so while it's dealing with that, let's talk about cursor settings. So there's two different settings in Cursor. One of the settings is cursor settings, and one is VS Code settings, which might be a little confusing because when you have the tab open, it's just called settings. So these are your core IDE settings, and these are inherited from Visual Studio Code. Some of them are specific to Cursor here, but you will want to look in cursor settings. Oh, look, we got a little ding ding sound. So we'll check out the app and see if it actually fixed it here in a second. That's not really the focus of this video. So needless to say, there's a bunch of settings in here. You can see that there's multiple folders of settings, and within each folder there's a bunch of settings. So I'll leave that up to you, but essentially that's the behavior of your editor, your how various things in the IDE work. But more important to our conversation here is cursor settings. So these are settings that are specific to Cursor. And here in general, these are just some sort of general purpose settings. Chat is for configuring your chat interface over there. I definitely recommend Agent as your default mode, and I recommend turning on custom modes. But other than that, it's up to you. Tab completion, so this is when you're actually in the code editor here. The AI will suggest code, and you can hit tab to accept that code. Models, I recommend disabling models you're not going to use. So I right now just have GPT-5 and Claude 4.5 Sonnet thinking enabled. I might change that today, we'll see. Background agents, we won't go into that here, but that's for running agents in the background. Tools in MCP is really important. So one set of tools I highly recommend is Context 7. And if you're in this screen and you want to add new tools, you hit new MCP server and it takes you to this file. And if you look at the Context 7 GitHub, it tells you exactly how to add this to your MCP servers. And in fact, it gives you a button to click that will add it in one step. I'm using the local server. I don't recall exactly why I used that over this one. Works fine. Love Context 7. So Context 7 is essentially With a large language model, they only have access to training data before when they were trained. So if a coding library has been updated, then it won't use it correctly potentially, and it will take a lot longer to write your code. So Context 7 allows the LLM to go access updated information about coding libraries. It has information about things like Django, Flask, LangChain, LangGraph, Minecraft, libraries. There's many things on Context 7. So I would almost say it's mandatory. And if you look at my configuration here, I also have some custom tools that I won't go over here. But needless to say, you can add your own tools and you can create your own tools. And one big thing, I'll just talk about my own personal tools a little bit, is working with tickets. So if you have a ticketing system, you can hook your AI agent into the ticketing system and have it go read a ticket and execute that ticket and close that ticket independently. Rules and memories. So these are really, really important. And I have a user rule of use Context 7 to retrieve documentation of external libraries. So that tells the AI agent to always refer to external documentation, essentially. Project rules are really important. So with each of my projects, I like to add a file called guidelines. And so just taking a step back, what these rules are is they dictate the behavior of your agent over here. So you can tell the agent about your project, how to work with your project, how not to work with your project, steps it should take to execute, to implement a certain task. We might, for this project, say we are building a sophisticated calculator. This is a very simple project. So my recommendation to you is to create this file early on, keep it open, and as you work with this coding agent, if you see it doing stuff that you don't want it to do, if you see it doing the wrong thing consistently, you add guidelines here. And you can add multiple rules files. So I've only added one, but you can have a bunch of them. And one really interesting thing is there's different ways to apply these rules. So always apply will always include the rules to the large language model with every interaction. Apply intelligently, so you can add a description to your rules, and the LLM itself will actually decide, okay, these rules are relevant to the situation I'm in. Apply to specific files. So if you are working with a project that has back-end code and front-end code, you could have different rules for working with JavaScript or HTML versus Python. Apply manually. So this is where you would use your context within the chat to apply them. In this case, we'll leave it as always apply. All right, so let's look and see if our calculator is now working. Let's go back to our browser. There's our calculator. 98 times 4. Hey, there we go. Oh, look at this. Cute. Built with Flask. All right, and so we have just created a complete working application using Flask in Cursor. So that's pretty cool. Let's go over a few more of these things and then we'll wrap it up. All right, indexing. So Cursor uses what's called a vector store, which is a semantic search technology that allows you to intelligently search through text. And in this case, it will find code that is most related to the thing you're talking about. So it finds the most relevant code really intelligently. It's much better than a simple keyword-based search. And maybe in a future video, I'll go over semantic search and vector stores. But for now, just note that it's a very advanced, smart search. All right, so there's a bunch of beta options down here, worth checking out. Just take them with a grain of salt because those are not official. Great, so that's a very quick overview of Cursor. We can initialize our repository here, and just gonna say we got a working calculator. Commit. There are no stage changes commit. Okay, so one thing you have to hit is this little plus here. There we go. All right. Now, one thing to note is I have not connected that to a remote repository, but that is homework for you. So I will go ahead and I'll publish this branch, and I will share that alongside this video. And until next time, I'll perhaps be going more in depth into some of these features, and maybe I don't know, do a project or two. Anyway, take care, and I'll see you later.